All right, so you should be good to call the meeting to order, Chair Dawson.
Okay, I am now calling the North Valley Municipal Advisory Council to order for our November meeting. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Arielle, do you have a flag or? You do. All right, there we go.
Oh my goodness.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks. All right, I'd like to welcome Supervisor Gorin, who's also with us tonight, and hopefully we'll get a few members of the public here. Let's see. Oh, Vice Chair Doss, would you call the roll?
Yes. Chair Arthur Dawson.
Here.
At large Kate Eagles.
Here.
At large Vicky Hendren.
Here.
At large Mark Newhouser.
Here.
SBCAC Matthew Dickey.
Here.
At large alternate Melissa Dowling.
Here.
And at Kenwood alternate Jed Cooper. And Angela Nardo Morgan, Glen Ellen Eldridge.
Here.
All right, thank you.
All accounted for. Oh, Damon Doss, yeah, here.
Here.
All accounted for.
Right, thank you. So there's no public here yet, but I'll just mention that we'll have public comment, and if, well, I'll mention that if anybody shows up. That's no reason to go into it now.
There actually, Chair Dawson, there are 3 members of the public. So when you get to that part, you know, someone's already raised their hand. So there are public members here.
Thank you. It wasn't showing up on my screen. Okay, so so we've got a question and answer in chat turned off for the meeting, but when we open public comment, please use the raise hand function on Zoom to be recognized and promoted to speak. And Arielle, do you mind keeping an eye on that?
No problem.
I have a hard time getting both up here. Let me try this right now. Let's see, participants. Okay, I'll do my best to keep an eye on it, but if you see someone with their hand raised, just let me know.
Yep, no problem.
So Arielle's taking minutes tonight because the other minute taker was unable to make this date. And Council Member Nardo Morgan, since you weren't able to speak at our last meeting, if you'd like to introduce yourself and just mention, you know, why you volunteered for the MAC and anything about your interests or background.
Okay, thank you, Chair Dawson. It was really interesting the last meeting because I was able to hear but could not speak. So it was a fascinating look at that. And just listening to everyone's you know, background was really fascinating. I, like many of you, have lived and raised my family in Sonoma Valley for over 30 years. My son was a Boy Scout here, and when I saw the flag, it reminded me that he carried the flag in almost every Glen Ellen Village Fair. He actually went all the way to become an Eagle Scout. He did his project with Sonoma Land Trust at the Glen Oaks Ranch. So I've been here a very long time and been very invested in the community and families. I received a fellowship and a leadership grant in my early career when I was at UC Berkeley and Sonoma State together to help develop the very first citizen science watershed monitoring program, Sonoma Creek Watershed, and I did that with Sonoma Ecology Center. I continued my work in science and ecology, working with Audubon Canyon Ranch and Bouvry Preserve and Russian River Keeper, and ultimately landed working for many years at Sonoma State University in teaching in the Environmental Studies Department. I currently work in ocean conservation with Marine Conservation Institute, and I'm on the board of the Glen Ellen Forum and on the board of the Historical Society, and I'm also with the Sonoma Valley Threshold Singers. I was really interested in being part of this organization because I was listening to many of you at the last meeting and really relating to the idea that Sonoma Valley has really undergone some major transitions over many years. In the beginning, when I lived here, it was really full of just families and community and neighborhoods. And it seems to have really shifted towards less and less children, less and less neighborhoods, more and more people living here with second homes and vacation homes. Even where I live, on either side of me, there are homes where people do not live here permanently. These are their second homes or their vacation homes. So they're not permanent residents. And I really think that it changes how people engage in the community. And I really wanted to look at that. I really feel that it's kind of our privilege to encourage the public to be a force for change. This is what to me, this group is about. We're here to listen and we're here to maybe advise and to bring information to the county, but it's really up to the public. If you want to see change, you have to get out there, get involved in the community, attend these meetings, know what's happening where you live. And I hope that that's what this group will do. And the second reason I wanted to be part of this is, I know this is biased and I will admit this, but as a scientist and ecologist, I wanted to really bring information to the public about how we can lower our carbon footprint. And as I said at the very beginning when I joined, I really hope that climate resilience and sustainability will be part of our agenda. And I noticed that it is, and I'm really thrilled with that. And I hope that we can bring to everyone information about participating in defining and building solutions that are effective in helping us prepare for a future of climate resilience. And I hope that that climate will really become a framework for all that we do. And I think that it can. And I think there are many ways that we can do that. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Nardo Morgan, and we're really glad you're here, and thanks for all the expertise that you bring. I don't know if you're able to, your face is pretty dark on my screen. I don't know if you can shift the light at all.
It's really dark here, and I apologize for that. I don't know why.
A little bit dark where I am too, but yeah, I mean, it's okay, but if there's something you could do easily,
okay.
If not, we'll.
There's no more light right here, but yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear me, I guess.
The Zoom is a whole new world.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna like to ask are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting?
I do have a correction. I was not listed as being at the meeting, and I was really only able to hear, but I was at the meeting. I actually texted you and I texted Melissa that I was there, but I couldn't hear. I mean, I couldn't speak. And then at the very end of the meeting, I don't know if you noticed, but my husband was able to call in. I was out in I was camping, so we didn't really have any access, but he was able to call in. There was a vote, and I actually did speak through his phone. He called in the public line. So I really was at that meeting, and I hope the minutes can be amended to show that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councilmember Eagles.
yes, thank you, Chair Dawson. Connected to that, I think it looks like Angela and I, Council Member Nardo Morgan and I were sort of switched in the minutes. I was present. I just hadn't had my camera on.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, if that could be reflected in the minutes, that would be great.
Okay, if we can make that change.
Yeah.
Any other corrections or additions? So would someone like to move that we accept the minutes with that change?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor of the minutes being accepted with the change, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the minutes are passed with that change. So now we have an opportunity for public comment, and this is for members of the public to speak on matters that aren't on the agenda. You will have an opportunity later on to speak to those issues. But if there are things that aren't on the agenda tonight that you would like to speak about, this is your chance to do so. Could people raise their hands if they would like to speak for public comment?
So we have right now Larry Davis and Leslie Vaughn. And we also have Jay Gamble and Sharon Lee in attendance, but they are not raising their hands.
I'm curious, I don't see them in my participants list. Should I be seeing?
Can you give them instruction on how to raise their hands and make sure they?
I see Larry and Leslie and as having their hands raised, actually, and
Yes.
and Jay Gamble's on and off now. So does anyone else see that? So Arthur, can you toggle between your panelists and your attendees on your participant screen? Is there a toggle there for you? Yeah.
All right.
I'm also happy to cover it.
Okay, I can see it now. I didn't realize that there was another separate panel there. I think let's hear from the public, and I'm going to limit comments to 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
Larry, would you like to go first?
Yes, so Larry, you should see a prompt come up on your screen asking you to unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Does that work? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. What I wanted to ask and request is that you put an agenda item on the next meeting that has to do with trying to help the public understand the impacts of the numerous local planning actions that are underway. As you know, I've been active in several of those as a participant citizen, and it may be that those different planning activities are in the back door somehow coordinating, but it's not visible to the public. And it seems that each of the planning activities has its own narrow concern, and it's not paying attention to what the other planning activities are doing. And so I'd like to discuss how the MAC might be helpful to the citizens in getting them to understand what the cumulative impact of all these plans will be over the next several years. Because as I look at it, the Sonoma Development Center specific plan, the proposed specific area plan that's proposed for Glen Ellen, the scheduled update of the general plan for the county, the Sonoma Mountain Regional Park plan, the Bay Area Ridge Trial Plan, the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainable Plan, and the Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan are all going to have a huge impact on what we can and cannot do and how things take place, and particularly in terms of North Valley and Sonoma Mountain. And so as I've been to these meetings, several issues have come up, and I think that somebody, hopefully the county, can come in with an overview about how these different plans fit together or don't fit together, because several issues have been coming up that could be avoided if we could get coordination between these different plans so that they understand that they're saying different things. Examples that have been brought to my attention that I can just give you to think about is that the problem of the Sonoma Development Center specific plans required to be consistent with the county general plan, but the general plan's out of date and it's going to be subjected to changes. And those changes will take into effect climate changes that the state's requiring the county to get involved in. But if the specific plan is put forth under the existing general plan, that won't be necessary. So there's somewhat of a confusion there. The unincorporated community of Glen Ellen, some people want to have a specific area plan, but the consulting firm that's planning through SDC and its draft vision statement is saying, well, it considers Eldridge a separate community. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. The Sonoma Regional Park Plan is based on out-of-date park planning proposal that was developed in 2017 before the fires and before CAL FIRE's regulation with regard to the requirements on the road for vehicles. And Sonoma Mountain Road will not meet CAL FIRE's emergency vehicle requirements of being a 20-foot road, neither will the parks. So we have a problem there. And the Sonoma Regional Park Plan is also planning on linking up with the Bay Area Ridge Trail, which is a huge 300-mile plan with equestrian and hikers and overnighters and all kinds of things. And it doesn't say anything in its planning about the fact that the Sonoma Development Center is planning on doing its own kind of outback open space for the 800 acres or whatever it is, or 600 acres of the Sonoma Development Center. So
Larry, let me
this is
jump
just
in.
an example of what we've got is a lot of different specific
Larry, we're at
plans.
about
And
4
now
minutes, so
what I would like you to discuss
if you can wrap it up in the next
now,
minute or so.
just a second, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. I'd like you to discuss whether you could convene some sort of summit or some sort of conversation among these different planning agencies, including people like the Ecology Center and Sustainable Sonoma and the Forum and, you know, everybody else, to kind of say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? What's the collective cumulative impact of all these things? Because each of these planning groups is doing their own thing, but when I look at what the cumulative impacts are going to be on the environment and on the roads and everything, I go, wow, wait a minute, what are we doing? But nobody's in charge of that except maybe the county, and nobody's in charge. See, the agencies may be able to talk to each other as planning professionals, but the citizens are left out of those conversations. And as I try to ask questions at these meetings, I get a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. So I just asking if this body could maybe hold a summit or hold a meeting or hold an educational forum or something that would try to bring into focus the fact that we've got a half a dozen plans that are going to shape our future, but we really don't know what's in those and how they, you know, how they fit together. End of rant. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking for a conversation about that, because as I've gone to the different planning agencies, none of them see it as in their sphere. They don't see it as in their
Larry,
sphere of influence to deal with.
I think we got
Okay.
it.
Is that clear?
Yeah, I understand
Okay,
your point,
all right.
and I think it's a good point. I think you know, we're not tasked particularly with land use planning, so I think we just have to be careful.
It's not to do land use planning. It's to try to get the planning groups. Let me clarify. I don't want you to do planning.
We'll
I want you to educate the public about what the consequences are. Yeah.
So we'll discuss how we might address some of the issues that you brought up. I can't make any guarantees, but we'll see what we can do. And we'll circulate the letter if you can, the letter that you sent, if you could send that in a Microsoft Word document, we can circulate that, and because a couple of us weren't able to open that, but if we can open it, we'd be happy to take a look at it. All right, thank you, Larry. And Leslie Vaughn.
Okay, Leslie, you should see a prompt asking you to unmute.
Got it. Hi, I'm calling on behalf of the Glen Ellen Forum and the Projects Committee. We are aware of areas in town that could be more attractive, and this in particular is the area across from the fire department known as the Triangle. I didn't know if I'd be able to share my screen, so I sent photographs also to Arielle. This is a project that we would like to see, and we have community support behind us to just make it look more attractive. And currently there's a lot of debris as far as dead branches and leaves and stuff that could all be cleaned up. There's a huge tree. I think it's actually 3 trees in one area. There's a sign there currently with an arrow to direct traffic away from it. And there's a long telephone pole that's laid down there as well. Probably, I didn't find out why it was there, but it looks like it would be a place that you'd come up to and park, not over it. The fire marshal I spoke with a few weeks ago, and he did get back to me today. I had asked him if he had any specific interest in how that area should be as far as xeriscape or signage or anything that was there, if he didn't like it or wanted it, or what did the department feel, because they're right across the street and they use that area as well to park sometimes. His only concern was that the roadway not be any kind of obscure boulders or things in the way, plants in the way, that they couldn't get to the right of way going north and south and east and west, because the Riddle Road goes both ways there. So the forum would like to, the projects committee specifically would like to move forward on cleaning that area up and making it look nice, sort of like we did at the post office. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention.
All right, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, the forum has done some great work in downtown Glen Ellen on beautification, and we'll see what we can do to help with further efforts. And we'll be talking about priorities tonight, but that's certainly on the possibility list of making beautification part of our goals for the next year.
Okay, thank you.
And Jay Gamble.
Okay, Jay, you should see a prompt to unmute.
I got it. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Leslie, what you said, I just wanted to add one thing. I was driving by there and it was having some thoughts about that very triangle just yesterday morning, going to have a very nice brunch at the Jack London Lodge. I think I would also check in with the County Department of Public Works, just as you very wisely checked in with the fire department, because there are people who have use for that triangle. And I think also there are times when the county public road has a use for that triangle, and as have private contractors over the years delivering gravel, et cetera, have a need to park trucks temporarily while they make deliveries or doing whatever. It has served a purpose over the years, and I would like to make sure that there was sort of a survey done of everybody what purposes that thing serves before we go about doing too much about it, just to understand what it does. It does more than just sit there and look ugly. It has served various people's ends, some county, some private, some local fire. So I just like to see that that's well understood before anything's done to it. Second thing, this is strictly technical. I would like very much to see, I don't understand why the chat is disabled. I would very much like to, I need to as a reporter, talk to people, say, please send me something on this. It's a very useful part of the Zoom tool. I don't know why it's disabled at this point, because it can be used responsibly. If it's not, I think it's up to the members to use it. So I think we can be trusted that far. It's not like we're overwhelmed with over chatting. So it's a very useful tool with Zoom. I'd like to see it put back into play here rather than disabled during these meetings. It's not for interrupting purposes, but I might have to need to ask Mark something, or Susan, or anyone here, a direct private message to be handled later, or good idea I have, maybe you could think about this another time, something that would be appropriate to say to one of your members that may not be appropriate to bring up at the meeting, but it's an excellent format for getting those messages across. And to the extent that we're going to encourage communication here, I wouldn't be stymieing it by cutting out the chat. That's just a personal.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I'm not aware of what the reasoning is. Is there, Arielle, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. One is that since it's a public meeting, the chat log, even the private chats, become a part of the public record, and that folks might not understand that. So we would have to publish the entire chat log along with the meeting materials, and that's unwieldy. Secondly, all of the council members of the MAC, their emails are publicly available on the website. So Jay, for your purposes, I encourage you to reach out to them directly if you don't have their contact information. It's also because not with this group, but there has been examples with other MACs and public meetings where people kind of flood the chat with unsavory material. It's nothing that we like to think about happening, but it could happen since it is an open public meeting and anyone could log onto this and put things in the chat. So that's a bit about the reasoning.
Not in the North Valley. That wouldn't happen here. So thank you. And Jay, thanks for just pointing out, the multi-use aspect of the triangle. And, I think that's one place the MAC could assist the forum in contacting county agencies and surveying, like you mentioned, doing a survey of how is that triangle actually used by county government, public works, and the fire department, and as well as the people of Glen Ellen. So thanks for that comment. All right. All right. Well, now we're going to get a update from Supervisor Gorin. Nice to see you here, Supervisor Gorin. And then let's see. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. And then after Supervisor Gorin, after she speaks, we'll have questions and comments from council members and then questions and comments from members of the public. So Supervisor Gorin, welcome.
Thank you, Arthur, and thank you to all of you participating in the North Valley MAC. It's exciting to see you in action, raring to go. And I must admit, Leslie, I was chuckling over your comment about the triangle because it was bringing back memories to me. I'd worked with at least one next door neighbor whose name shall remain nameless, wanting something to be spruced up at the triangle. And we went round and round and round and round and round. Looking at a number of the issues that you just raised, the usage by the fire department, the usage by the county, it is a county easement. They do have need for that easement. They're not going to give up the easement for a private little park for the neighbors. But it is important, as we know, because we will have events at the fire station again. It's used by the community. It's used by the neighbors, so we do have to be careful. And Leslie, you might connect with Alicia Stansel because she actually worked with this individual to come up with a plan that might meet the needs of the Glen Ellen MAC or the North Valley MAC and the community. And it would just take a little bit of fundraising and volunteer power to actually accomplish that. So the more things change, the more things stay the same. Here we come again. Just a quick update on from the county perspective. Yes, we're still in the COVID pandemic. And I want to think of the light at the end of this tunnel. Well, I've been reading about vaccines, and we are developing plans to enroll vaccines. It's going to take us a while to get through that. And please know that in case you haven't read about it, the vaccines must be stored at very, very, very cold temperatures, and you must wait about 30 days between inoculations, which is challenging to line people up to get them to take the first vaccine and then chase them down so that they actually do successfully take the second vaccine, because otherwise they'll have to start over. And it will take a long time before the residents of the county all receive the vaccine if they hope to receive it. And you probably know that there are more than a few folks who legitimately are concerned about vaccines and their physical effects and philosophically opposed to vaccines. So it's going to be challenging for Sonoma County to get through it, but sign me up. I want to be number one. Oh, and I probably won't be. It's healthcare personnel are going to be number one. Apparently a supervisor is just non-essential. And so you probably have paid attention to the exploding number of COVID cases around the state, around the nation, and around other nations. And I guess you could say we're fortunate in that we never emerged out of purple. So we have nothing to lose. And in fact, 41 counties were pushed back into the purple tier by the governor today. It's because of the sheer number of infections that are happening in each of the counties. And I just read a newsletter from my friend, the supervisor at Yolo County. They are one of them. And so as sad as it is for us to acknowledge that it's going to be a while longer before we can open up, I think that is that's the sad news that we have to deal with. We did move to the state asking for adjudication for us to open into the red tier because we have more testing than what we realized, and our infection rates were good within the acceptable levels. But I fear the governor will not allow us to move into the red tier because of the sheer number of infections around the state. And you've probably all received and heard about the messaging happening, still wearing your masking, still participating in social distancing. But please, please, please be very discreet and conservative in who you gather with over the holidays. But no, not surprising to me, we are discovering that the small and larger gatherings are the source of transmission for many of us in Sonoma County. And yes, we do have those vacation rentals open up, and we do have folks partying in there. But please be careful, and my hearts are with all of you. I'm missing my family in Colorado. So I am absolutely understanding the sacrifices that we're making right now for the holiday situation. Let me see. I wanted to respond to some of the comments regarding the changing demographics of Sonoma Valley. And indeed, we've noticed that for the past decade. One of the items on the agenda tomorrow is an acknowledgement of the West County and their changing demographics, and then fewer families. The West County school system is contemplating closing down a high school, El Molina High School, and Supervisor Hopkins is moving forward tomorrow to propose an additional 4% TOT for vacation rentals to support schools and to support the Bodega Bay Fire Station and their services that they provide. It's somewhat controversial. I'm not recommending it for all of you, but you might pay attention to how that rolls out. And so stay tuned and bring your popcorn for the board meeting tomorrow. Should be very exciting discussion. Also on tomorrow's agenda is the Economic Development Board has been working with business leaders far and wide to develop an economic recovery plan. And that is on tomorrow's agenda. It's about 33 pages long. Also, you might pay attention, we have a hazard mitigation grant program, and we have a number of things on there for community preparedness, alert warning systems, road systems. And so every month we get notified of a couple of more grants that we've been funded for. An item near and dear to everyone's heart is a discussion regarding the PG&E settlement funding that will be coming forward on December 8th, where we'll be unrolling some discussion about repairing some of the roads damaged by debris, cleanup in the 2017 fires. I have yet to see an accurate road listing for all of those, but at least we'll have a discussion about not only looking at road repair, but moving the funding forward for undergrounding utilities potentially somewhere in the 1st District, and looking at ways that we can widen and create turnouts and create more safe ingress and egress during fire and emergencies. So please pay attention, put that item on your agenda to pay attention to in December. We're going to be having a conversation regarding vegetation management, also important within the context of the PG&E settlement. One of the things that, thank you, Leslie Vaughn, if you're still on here, she's been trying to plow through installing lighting on Jim Birkeland Bridge, as was done last year. And we have Arcticscape in the Springs trying to plan holiday lighting even at this late date. I would recommend that the two MACs, both in the Springs and the North Valley, look at how we can work with you on holiday promotions and lighting and ceremonies. I think that that is appropriate for the MAC to take that on, and maybe we can have that discussion earlier so that we're not playing catch up in November. We should be having everything lit up by now, and it's a little late. And just my final note about Larry, I know you are a planning wonk and you want to have everybody come together to talk about all plans. And the reality is it would probably take all year for this group to go dive into all the planning activities that are happening. But I think the main point is that we all should be aware of the planning discussions happening in isolated situations and in specific areas, but in connection with the general plan. And yes, we will be moving forward with a general plan update, I hope, next year for sure. And I hope many of you were able to participate in the virtual community engagement for the Sonoma Developmental Center. It came off actually better than I expected. I predicted chaos, and it was not quite chaos, but I'm not sure exactly what the planning team got out of it. And the next item on their planning schedule will be coming to the Board of Supervisors at the end of January. And we'll have an opportunity to educate all of the supervisors, but especially the new supervisor, Chris Corsi, who will be seated in January on the Sonoma Developmental Center. And then the planning team will develop the 3 alternatives. I'm not sure what they're going to look like, but for the environmental report that needs to come out at the same time. So I'll end my report there. I want to thank you all. Have a very safe holidays. And we know all of your holidays are going to be very quiet and small. So thank you.
All right. And same to you. Hope you have a good, small, safe, healthy holiday. Any council members would like to make a comment or ask any questions of Supervisor Gorin? I have one question. As far as the TOT funds, I would personally be interested in finding out, how the decisions are made to distribute those. I know that, well, I have the impression that a lot goes to the Visitors Bureau. And I was just curious if that's something the MAC could at least take a look at and maybe just provide some feedback.
We certainly can take a look at that in detail. Previously, we had categories and everybody applied in various categories. All of that sort of disappeared. The supervisors each get about $100,000 to dispense in the community investment funds, and that's primarily to contribute to the holiday lighting and all of the great nonprofit work that's been happening around District 1. And elsewhere, Symphony, Green Music Center, the whole thing. The Visitor Bureau and the Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers have come together to apply for a joint grant, and we haven't yet figured out exactly what that's going to look like because they need some support to support tourism and advertise businesses. And the chamber actually is funded through the Economic Development Board. So it's a change, but we can go down and at another meeting and give you the specifics on how that is allocated and rolled out. I have some discretion and the board has other discretion. A little bit goes to parks and roads and housing. So we can get into that, and it changes each year.
Yes, Council Member Dowling.
Yes, just a little bit of late breaking news. And then also on the topic of TOT funds, Supervisor Gorin arranged for TOT funds to be granted for improvement of the post office parking lot. So that's a good example of how those funds are in direct use for community improvement, which we really appreciated. The late breaking news is that our very own Leslie Vaughn, who everybody knows, is working really hard to plan for lighting again of the Jim Birkeland Bridge. And today the board of the Glen Ellen Forum voted to approve doing a special fundraiser to try to get funds. The solution and the level of lighting will depend on how much money we're able to raise. And Supervisor Gorin has and her team have expressed that they're fully in support of that project as well. So there will be some lighting of the Jim Birkeland Bridge. I'm very confident this year, and it will be. We can all look forward to the mystery of how dramatic and how exciting it's going to be.
Thank you, Melissa. That is exciting, and I'm glad that you are helping to sponsor the lighting. That's absolutely important for the community. Support that. One other thing that the TOT funds do provide for, and that is the operational expenses of the two MACs. as well as, and the note takers and all of the expenses involved in the max. Well, we're virtual, so we don't have rent, and we do have translators at the Springs Mac. And yet you don't have a need for a translator, but it may happen soon.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Gorin. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Oh, hi. Thank you for acknowledging me. I had my hand raised previously. Maybe you can't see it, but yeah, regarding the triangle across from the fire station, I would like to request that this be put on the agenda for the next meeting. This is an issue that I am interested in and had been approached by Arielle and through Supervisor Gorin's office previously, years ago, actually, and have put some thought into this as well. I think Susan makes a good point about the previous planning done, and also Jay's comments about the requirements, the county public works requirements, as well as the fire department. So it is somewhat of a planning exercise, but I think it fits within the North Valley MAC in that it is a community project. It's one that we can help to facilitate, to make it happen. And it's one that I am personally interested in and have background in planning public works projects. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Newhouser. I think, yeah, at the end, the second to last item is consideration of items for next month. So we can come back to that and discuss that.
Sounds good.
So last chance for comments or questions for Supervisor Gorin. All right, let's move into the mission statement. And
thank you all. I'll hang on and listen to you, but I'm going to turn my sound off. So go for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So how about, I think I'll just go ahead and read the mission statement as the draft as we, and thank you to council members Eagles and Cooper, who we worked together to draft the mission statement and also the possible goals and priorities. So here's our draft mission statement, and then we'll take comments on edits or changes, additions, etc. The North Valley Municipal Advisory Council represents the people of Eldridge, Glen Ellen, and Kenwood as the community's voice to our elected representatives. We are committed to engaging with all community members in meaningful and inclusive ways to promote the health, safety, and quality of life for everyone in the North Sonoma Valley. So any thumbs up? Should we? All right. Anybody have any issues with that with that mission statement?
Thanks, Larry.
That's great. Any members of the? I guess I should check the public too. Hold on a sec. No one has their hand up. So would someone like to move that we adopt the draft mission statement?
Leslie raised her hand right after you stopped looking.
Oh.
So I will
Okay.
allow her to talk if that's
Yeah.
if that's how you'd like to do
Yeah,
it. Okay.
We'd like to hear from Leslie. I think she'll have to unmute her, or you'll have to unmute her.
Oh, there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to say it sounds fabulous, Chair Dawson. Thank you so much. And
Yeah, our
Chair
pleasure.
Eagles and Cooper too. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. All right, would someone like to move that we adopt the mission statement as drafted?
Oh, and it looks like Larry has. Oh no, he popped it down. If I can make a suggestion, I think you should both discuss, not make a formal vote now, and discuss the goals and priorities, and then ask for public comment. So it's just a little more streamlined.
Okay.
And then you can vote after. You can discuss it, come up with your idea, and then ask for public comment, and that might move you to change. It might bring new perspectives for you, but I think we should not do back and forth with public comment.
Okay, we can move on to possible goals and priorities. Arielle, can you put the goals and priorities up on your screen so we can see it?
Yes, one moment.
Great. So actually one thing Arielle, I wanted for some clarification was so are these intended to be like I can see the goals are something that are probably long-term, but the things underneath them might be something we would take on in the coming year. Like what's the time frame for the goals and priorities? What's the intention?
I think the intent, I mean, it's kind of however you guys want to do it. It always makes sense to set some more short-term goals that you can start working on right now, but there's nothing in the bylaws or in the board's you know, regulations around this that you have to finish things by X date or that you have to write all new goals every fiscal year. There's nothing like that. So whatever you guys are comfortable with is fine.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just a comment before we start discussing is you know, I'm thinking that I think I put in here, recommend the MAC chooses a limited subset to focus on for the coming year. So maybe if that sounds good, maybe as we talk about this, people in the back of their minds can think about where we would want to focus for this year. Even if we adopt all the goals and priorities and maybe some other ones as well, we can still decide to you know, make some effort toward particular ones in the next year or whatever time frame people think is right. So let's see. Does anybody have a comment on that? How we approach this? That's just been my thought about how to approach this. Okay. Wait, I'm not looking at the hands.
Okay,
Arielle, can you tell me if anybody raises their hand?
I'm raising my hand here.
Not seeing. Let's see.
I hear someone saying they're raising their hand, but when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see very well what else is going on. So just so you know.
Okay.
Maybe people just talk. We can get a little messy. Just say what you want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, that was me because I couldn't get back into my screen. Excuse me, I couldn't get back into my raised hand screen. Is it okay if I talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, Councilmember Eagles.
So related to what you're saying, Chair Dawson, just to be clear on this, so you were almost about to call a vote for the draft mission statement, but is our purpose today to also vote on the mission statement and vote on some goals, not necessarily with a timeline toward those goals, but just those goals in general? Is that our voting intention today, to do two separate votes on mission and goals?
As I understand it, yeah, we could vote both of them in, or we could just vote. We could approve the mission and then put the goals and priorities to next month. You know, whatever if we feel like we completed it, we could move that to next month, or vice versa. Although I think probably the mission should be settled on first before we approve on goals and priorities.
Agreed. It's just the goals will be more fluid, I think, but
Yeah.
we still may want to have some votes. So wanted to throw that out to you all. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Councilmember Eagles. Yeah. So how about I think I will just go down the list and people can comment on you know, what they think about these goals. You know, we're trying to keep in mind what the purview of the MAC is on these. So so the first goal, and these were not in any particular order, and this was just at Councilmember Dickey's suggestion last month. We just came up with these goals just as something to work with, but there's room to add things, take things away, et cetera. So anyway, first goal is expand the stock of affordable housing. And let's see, I'm just trying to think if we want to try to, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilmember Nardo Morgan. Yeah.
What did you want me to do here?
Oh, I thought you were waving your hand. Sorry.
No, I wasn't. Sorry. But I do have a comment, Chair Dawson. With these goals, would you be willing to, and maybe that's the next step, write a little bit about how we might accomplish this? Maybe that's later on down the line, but it would be good to have maybe a sentence or two about that.
Well, we could work on that together. I mean,
Later.
I understood what we were doing was just to come up with some possible goals. And then for the most part, those bullet points underneath them were just examples of actions that might contribute to that goal.
Okay.
So, so those are more kind of a brainstorm just of possible actions. But
I just want to say there are a couple people who have their hands up, Damon and Mark. So, you know.
Oh, I can't see them, but sorry. Okay, Vice Chair Das. Did you have a comment?
Muted.
You need to unmute yourself. Or Arielle, can you unmute?
I got it.
Okay.
I apologize. Launched into my presentation before I unmuted. I apologize. In regards to the goals and the priorities or objectives, as long as it's understood that if we adopt the goals and priorities tonight or any other time, that we're not limited to just those priorities. There are multiple areas within the very first one, expand stock of affordable housing, that we might want to look at over the next few months, year. And I just want to make sure that just by adopting what we're seeing in front of us now, while I think excellent, could have additional ones added at some point in the near future.
I agree. Yeah, I think maybe the best thing to do would be just to go through and go through the goals and see how people feel about the goals, because like you said, the bullet points can all be expanded on. There's a lot of things that could be done to expand affordable housing, for example, besides just informing homeowners about ADUs. But let's see. I'm wondering if we could, if there's a way, maybe we can just do thumbs up on these goals.
Chair Dawson, I think Mark, Councilmember Newhouser would like to speak.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Newhouser.
Thank you. Thank you. I realize there may be issues with being able to see. I think the pictures are showing up on the right-hand side, but also a comment about how to get into the muting and raising hand. You can just click on the participants at the bottom of the screen below the posted document, and then you can access the mute and raise hand function. It doesn't necessarily fix your ability to be able to see when people are raising their hands, but anyway, just a process comment there. Regarding the goals, I want to second what Vice Chair Doss said about the goals. My understanding was that we were going to have our mission statement, goals, and priorities be more general as pertaining to what our assigned role is in general terms. But I'm fine, and I appreciate the work that the subcommittee has done to put together specific goals so we can start focusing on that. But as far as a vote, I think it would be wise to address the mission statement, approve that, and the generalized goals, and then give us a month to work on these specific goals and to refine those, and even start coming up with some a list of prioritization, as in a timeline. But I think that I would feel more comfortable approving this, if you want to get to a vote tonight, that we approve the actual goals, the underlying goals, and not necessarily all the bullets.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry that we keep coming back to this. Expecting the bullets they're examples. They're not open for discussion and addition.
Excellent.
So that's what they're intended to be. It's so there's a little bit of meat on the bones. If you, at least for me, if I just see expand stock of affordable housing, like what's something the MAC might be able to do. I just wanted to have something there to think about. But I totally agree that yeah, we should think about the goals, and then we can go in more depth into the what the priorities are in the near future. And I'm also wondering, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So I was thinking, if we agree on these goals, maybe then we decide on 3 or 4 goals to focus on, and then we form ad hoc committees to then come back to the MAC with specific things. And that way we're not spending months trying to develop a long laundry list that will take forever to get to. So I'm wondering if we should have a vote on well, let's see. Okay, are there any goals that people don't agree with? They would take out of our, of our MAC goals for the long run. Yeah, Vice Chair Doss.
Yes, Chair Dawson, excuse me, yeah. It's not that I disagree. I have a question about our mission and what we're supposed to be involved in. Clarity on goal, advise on issues related to Sonoma Development Center transition, traffic and housing. Do we actually have any say in that, or are we just a voice in the wind in this one?
Well, that's a good question. I guess, because Eldridge is part of our MAC area, and we are given, advisory power for transportation and housing and stuff. It seems like those particular items, I don't think the MAC has the purview to get deeply involved in the many questions with Eldridge, but I think, and Arielle, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I think we do have the advisory power to address particular issues that may be related to Eldridge.
Right. I wasn't aware exactly what our purview is in that regard.
Yeah, Arielle, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, since the SDC planning process right now is it's a separate kind of general plan thing that's happening. So it's a little separate from even the land use that you don't have because SDCAC has it, right? I think that you can certainly receive updates on that, and you can certainly, promote engagement in it. Perhaps you can certainly participate as individuals. As an official body, I would have to check with some other folks about if that's if that's a road you want to go down more than just as individual citizens. I'm happy to look into that and see what the parameters would be.
All right, thank you, Arielle. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I think I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. I mean, it's a big issue, and maybe we should think about where's our energy best spent. And there are many people working on Eldridge right now. I mean, something may come up where we feel like we should chime in.
When others look at our goals and they see this listed as a goal, there's an expectation that we have something to say and or have some authority over traffic and or housing the way it's stated. And so that was my concern.
Observation. Just an observation. I think being in a role that publicly contributes to what happens at SDC is unavoidable. I mean, it's clearly the elephant in the room, if you will. However, we don't really have to participate in it now because, as Arielle indicated, there are no proposals before us. So I think having it as a goal is unavoidable. I do not see how we could call ourselves a municipal advisory committee and not have some input as to what's going to happen with housing and traffic and all the other things that are going to happen when SDC is developed. So I think it's absolutely valuable to have it as a goal. It does not have to be something that's a priority until such time as, you know, a development plan is proposed.
All right, thanks, Councilmember Dickey.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I agree with Councilmember Dickey. I think it's not up to us to dictate how people are going to listen to us, but I think we've been given a voice, and we should use it.
Right. Thank you, Councilmember Hadron. So, yes, Councilmember Newhouser.
Let me unmute. How about now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Brain fart there. Yeah, I tend to agree, but I think that given our purview over traffic, beautification, community projects, even I would go so far as the character of Glen Ellen and the North Valley, that we can weigh in. And I think that if it's the only difference I have with what Matt was saying was that it is happening now. We don't have a plan before us, but they're taking input on elements that can become part of the plan. And I took part in the most recent community meeting, and it was very exciting, and it was wonderful to hear what other people were saying, and the similar concerns about the fact that this is being developed as a completely separate community, and for some reason separated from Glen Ellen. And it was very strange. And I think that we could put together a unified message from the North Valley MAC to help guide the planning of this, so that, you know, even within the elements that we've been given the authority to address. Regarding specific goals, the one goal that I see that I would like to see modified is the community beautification. My understanding is that we're addressing community projects, or maybe more specifically, community or volunteer projects, which can address more than beautification. And I think, you know, most people think of beautification, but creek cleanups, this has a direct impact on environmental health. We can actually do construction things that you know, I mean, the triangle may be more beautification, but there can be functional elements. So I would like to see that particular goal modified.
How would you reword that?
Just community volunteer projects, or community projects. You know, whether they're volunteer or not. How about improvement? Community improvement projects.
Anybody have a comment on the changing the wording to community improvement projects?
Good idea.
All right. I think the bylaws actually say beautification, but we can probably get away with calling it community improvement projects.
I think that was meant as an example. It's sort of like your bullet points. It wasn't meant to be only beautification. It's supposed to be, you know, community projects like beautification.
Yeah.
Yes, because okay.
Yes, Councilmember Eagles.
Thank you. Yeah, it could, because it could include community art projects, which you could argue are beautification, but tree planting, as you mentioned, creek cleanup, I think broadening it is a very good idea. I'm in agreement with that. I don't think those things are covered in a different goal, so I think it makes sense to change that goal.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on that? Changing the wording? Okay.
I'd like to change another one.
Sure. That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Disaster preparedness. I'm thinking more about not just prevention or preparedness, but sorry, I'm not thinking of specific way of changing it, but I think that making improvements to homes and things like that, it's I don't know the word disaster. Seems like a little bit like a fait accompli there. Bear with me while I try to think of better wording.
Comment?
Go for it.
You could use emergency.
Dickie? Yeah.
How about disaster preparedness and response? I mean, let's face it. Earthquakes, fire, water shortages,
floods.
You know, it might not be the most attractive word to use, but it's representative of the truth. It's representative of a reality that we probably want to engage with.
Thank you. Yeah. So,
what about using emergency instead of disaster?
That sounds good.
I don't know.
And I think Councilmember Dowling has her hand up. Unless she left it up. Councilmember Dowling, did you want to speak?
No, just one thought that I had when Councilmember Newhouser was speaking is I like the word beautification in the goal. Community improvement, beautification is very subjective. I think community improvement is even more subjective. I don't know how far we can go with that, but I think beautification, everything that people mentioned would fall under beautification.
Thank you, Councilmember Dowling. Maybe we can include both, community improvement and beautification.
I would argue that improvement is more inclusive rather than exclusive than beautification, personally.
Any other thoughts on beautification versus improvement?
Maybe we could just call it community projects.
Yeah. It seems like a simple solution. Would someone like to move that we change the wording on that one to just community projects?
I'll move that we change it.
And do we have a second? All right, second. All in favor of changing the goal community beautification to community projects? Raise your hand or say aye.
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 And all against? I don't see everybody, but I don't think I heard any nays there. So I'm going to assume that passed. So we will change that to just community projects. And then would someone like to move that we change the goal of enhanced disaster preparedness to enhance emergency preparedness? Is that, or any other comments on changing that one?
Sounds good.
Arthur, excuse me.
Yeah, Councilmember Eagles.
Chair, I think we have when do we take public comment on this? Do we need to do that before we vote on these? I'm not sure of the.
Yeah, I believe we take.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I wasn't sure on the order of events here.
Let's see. Yeah, I believe after our discussion, we take public comments. Just look at my notes here. Yeah, so we discuss and then we take public comments. So.
Dawson, I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, Councilmember Narda Morgan.
So I'm just curious, and maybe you've all worked this out when you were creating this agenda, and maybe Melissa can help answer this too, but as a member of the board of the forum, I really see a lot of these similar agendas that we have, that we're doing. for example, beautification, improvement projects, safety and traffic. And I'm just wondering how this ties in. If it does, are we working together with them, or maybe it might reflect on the importance of some of these too. I just don't know, what the thinking was when this came up.
Well, I'll tell you my personal thoughts, or does anybody else want to chime in on that?
Chair Dawson, go ahead, and then I'll comment after you.
Okay. Well, two things. One is the MAC is our connection with the county government. So I think, to me, the MAC is tasked with trying to bring these about, by leveraging resources from the county, and also bringing the forum together with identifying resources, helping make connections. And also the MAC, is for the whole North Valley. So, things that are happening in Kenwood are really outside the purview of the forum. So I think, there's a lot of us in Glen Ellen on the MAC, and I think it's easy to forget that there's, I'm really glad we have some Kenwood folks here. But I just want to remind all of us, this is for the whole North Valley, from where Kate lives down in Madrone all the way up to where Jed Cooper lives up off of Adobe Canyon Road. So it's the whole area we're talking about.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. So there might be a little tie-in with some of the things the forum's doing, but not completely.
Yeah, I think so. And certainly, I think we should be looking at how to work with the community organizations that are already here and already operating. We don't want to try to reinvent the wheel or get in the way of something that's already happening. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That makes sense.
Yeah, Councilmember Dowling.
Yeah, my feeling as the president of the board of the Glen Ellen Forum is the more the merrier. And, we're like, algae and fungus, and we work together to create things. That the Glen Ellen Forum has been around for quite a while, and we've earned involvement from the community. We get about 50 people coming to our meetings. We have 4 stalwart members of the community who I so appreciate coming to this meeting. And the MAC has the ear to the county, and the Glen Ellen Forum doesn't have that. And, and also expanding to our neighbor communities of Kenwood. So I don't see any conflict whatsoever between what the Glen Ellen Forum is doing and trying to accomplish, and look forward to working closely with the MAC to merge our goals together and accomplish things together.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my sentiments exactly.
Just to add to that, if you will, I think that the MAC is in a position of accountability to the community as well as to the county supervisor. And also there's the opportunity for more formalized notification to the community through the county. And it's also an opportunity to weigh the needs more broadly and to help prioritize where to focus efforts, so that it's the input, especially if resources come from the taxpayers and the county, that it's more equally and equitably distributed.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Newhouser. Any other comments on this? I'm thinking maybe the best approach, most efficient approach might be just to go down the list of goals here, and talk about, if we need to change the wording, or if someone thinks some of these don't belong on this list, we can talk about that. And then talk about any additional goals we might want to put in here, so that we'll then have a solid list of goals, and then we can hear from the public. So any comments on the goal of expanding the stock of affordable housing? All right, looks like no comments. So I'm going to assume that's, if I if there's no comments, I'm going to assume that there's agreement that should be one of our goals. Goal, develop community outreach plan, which as Kate Eagles pointed out in some emails, I don't know, when we were putting this together, that is part of our job as the MAC, but it also seems, we communicated with Arielle and she said, you know, you can have it both ways. You can have it in the bylaws, but also this kind of brings it to our attention that's part of our where our efforts are going. So we can kind of have it both ways. So anybody object to having or have any changes to develop community outreach plan? And that's just the goal. This isn't getting into the details. Okay, I'm going to call that one good. Then we changed goal, enhance emergency preparedness. And I think we're good on that. But if anybody has any, yes, Councilmember Dickey.
I suppose you could argue that preparedness and response are relatively the same, but I think how we respond and how we plan for that should be also included somehow. Either we do it as a bullet point or we're doing it as an inclusion in terms of the goal. But we can prepare for these emergencies, but how we respond can be also viewed as a separate entity, sort of a separate, and so whatever we do here, let's make sure that we're including, we're including how we respond to this in addition to how we prepare.
Yeah. Good point. So I'm going to suggest that we add preparedness and response, or add response at the end of that.
Yeah, so I think you guys can all see that, but I just changed it to be
oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Emergency preparedness and disaster response.
That's great. Yeah.
From listening.
Take disaster out of there. I think emergency preparedness and response is fine.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments on that one? Okay, then the next one is community, which Arielle's already got changed. Community projects. Any final comments on that? Okay, that remains on the list the way it is. Advise on issues related to SDC transition. We talked about that a little bit. Anybody see a need to change the wording or do something more drastic? Okay, I'm gonna mark that as good. Goal, traffic and safety issues. Any comments or word changes? Okay, that one's good. Goal, adapt to climate change, reduce community's carbon footprint. Any comments or wording changes on that one? Well, this is too easy, you guys.
Can I throw you a curveball? What about community participation projects?
Anybody have any thoughts?
Can you explain further, Councilmember Newhouser?
Well, we're not just doing projects in the community. We're trying to engage, we could say community engagement projects, but then it almost begs to define it as improvements. But I think the whole idea is to get the community engaged and participating in either beautification or improvement projects. And we can either put that in 3 words or less or more.
But I kind of also see that this is Council Member Nardo Morgan. I kind of see that as a subset of improvement projects.
I agree. Yes, Councilmember Eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah, or an extension of community outreach plan.
Right, that too.
I think what Arthur mentioned, that I was thinking, is that a goal or is it a mandatory? We have to have an outreach plan, right? And I think it could fall into that as well. So I would agree that it belongs somewhere though. But maybe it's a tactic that we work out later because it's already potentially part of one of these goals.
My inclination would be to keep these as short as possible, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. So is everybody good keeping that as community projects? Anybody not good? Okay. And then let's see. So that gets us to the end of the goals that we had in this draft. Are there any other goals that we missed or that people would like to have included or think about? All right. Well, I think why don't we open this up to the public and see if anybody else has comments, and then we can, and then if we're lucky, we can vote on adopting all this stuff. Okay, Larry Davis.
Yeah, the comments are that it's great for you to go through this collective editing. It's very difficult. I think it is two functions that you have that I tend to think of as educational functions or learning functions. One of them has to do with bringing the whole weight of the county into play in the area that you're responsible for. That is, you are the agency of the county at the local level. It doesn't get any more local than you are. And that's a function that nobody else is going to serve. And so every one of these things has county agencies dealing with it. And so I'd advocate that as you go through these goals, the first thing you do with any goal is go to the county and find out how they're handling that goal themselves. Because the county does all these things and many more. And you're the agency of the county in the local area. And that's the difference between you and the forum. The forum can do that, but its access to the county agencies and resources and knowledge and understanding and data is very limited compared to the access you have through the supervisor's office to the agencies, to the facts, to the data, all kinds of things that you can do, and you can bring that forward into the community. And that's your second function, is getting the community to understand its own situation. You know, communities, because of modern media, know a lot more about Timbuktu and what's going on the other side of the world than they know about what's going on downtown in Kenwood. And so it's really important that we re-educate the community, the village, in order to be able to take control of its own future. And you're the agency that's most positioned, best positioned to do that. That was the why there was all this energy to say, well, let's have the forum because they can do beautification and these things, but let's have an agency that pulls that county in and pulls the people into getting engaged constructively with the governmental local agencies. And that includes not only the nonprofit and the profit, but also all the governmental agencies that are on top of the county, including the regional and the state and the whole things that come down. Federal grants, state grants, regional grants all come in and fund part of the county, and part of that money can come to us. And part of those resources can come to us. You have to learn how the county works and what it is, and then be able to be the wise people, the elder citizens, other than the supervisor's office, who can connect with the local community and say, hey, do you realize there's these resources, there's these assets, there's these ways you can get these things done. And then you become an operative agent to support all the other agencies that can't do that. You're the only ones that can do that. And you can do it because you have legal mandate to do it. And you have a legal mandate from the state of California to hold whatever educational forums, whatever educational activities suit your purposes. So those are all in the state law about creating municipal advisory committees, because the state law wanted to have community empowerment. And all it could do in the county communities like Glen Ellen is create municipal advisory committees. It couldn't create cities. Cities do this thing for it themselves. You are the city government de facto for now Glen Ellen and Kenwood and Eldridge and the SDC and the North Valley. You're it.
Ask you a question.
So I seize that power and get close to the county. Is, yeah, the question is, can you put those goals in that you're going to do what you're talking about here in community outreach to outreach both ways, outreach to the county to bring them in and outreach to the people to educate them as to what's available to them and what issues they can bring up so that they can see you as this channel. So instead of one supervisor for 40,000 people, they've got 9 people right here who can help them with this whole question of how we're going to get through the climate change, how we're going to get through all of these things. We've got tremendous transitions happening and we need a lot of learning. And you guys can be the educators or the wise people. So that's, I'm saying that to me is the image of the goals at that higher level that Mark was talking about. You know, these tool functions of you're in between the county and the people, and you can serve as a communicator and create a better relationship. I, as a citizen, having very difficult times, for instance, let's case study. I would like to come to you and say, hey, I'm not getting good satisfactory answers to 30 pages of detailed questions we've given the Parks Department as to why they want to put overnight fire camping on Sonoma Mountain in the middle of a fire zone. And they're not giving any good answers. And I would really like it to be able to come to you and say, hey, could you look at Sonoma Mountain's fire hazard? And could you look at the park's plan and see that something in the county has gone sadly wrong or not? Can you help? But I can't do that right now because you're not positioned in my mind to be able to do that because you don't, it's not even clear if that's within your boundary. But the point is the boundaries that we're dealing with are not boundaries that are lines in the territory. They're boundaries of ecology and weather and fire and things like that. They don't care what the boundaries are. But we're very close to having a plan put forth to the Board of Supervisors. So I need your help to look at that, but I can't, I don't know how to get that into your goals, to help citizens group. Let me give you an example. The citizens group that's behind trying to get
Larry, I think I have an idea. Can I suggest
plan to be considered?
Let me suggest a goal, okay?
Let me just
get your point. I get your point that
well, okay.
Let me engage and educate ourselves on what resources are available.
Let me just get this one point out and then say,
can we make a goal? Can we write that into
we have met for many hours. Yeah, we have met for many hours with the Parks Planning Department to look at what the people in Glen Ellen want to know and what to do with regards to the regional park plan. And they've said to us, over 1,000 people have responded to them so far, more than any other public outreach has been effective. And they've got overwhelming comments from people like me who live on the mountain. But
Larry,
they have no mandate from any
Larry,
government agency.
Chair, I need to just interrupt and say, you're making a lot of good points, and right now we're talking about the overall goals for the MAC, and so we need to figure out a way to fold what you're talking about into a goal without going down a rabbit hole of
well, what I'm suggesting is your overall. Let me try again, and then I'll shut up.
Suggest some wording and see what you think.
The 2 goals.
Larry, I'm going to suggest some wording.
The 2 goals.
And tell me what you think.
I'll read.
Larry, I'm sorry.
I will read it to you.
We need to move on a little bit here, and so I just need to suggest some wording.
I listened.
Respond,
Arthur,
okay?
just a second. Yeah, I'm going to suggest a wording to you. Okay. As a locally focused agency of Sonoma County government, the North Valley MAC is in a unique position to efficiently and economically inform and enhance the participation of local citizens in the formation of county policies regarding the allocation of resources and the access to county services. They can also most effectively foster transparency and collaboration among diverse public and private stakeholders and communities of interest. That is, you can be the local government because you are the local government. So those are the goals. That's the level that I would have it happen. Now I'll send you the letter that I tried to send you that I couldn't. I'm learning that the county can't take things that you send them because of their own. So I'll send you this, Arthur, and next month, if we get this on the agenda for next month, next meeting, then you'll all have this to look at and you can see what you want to do with it or not. But you're the last resort in terms of getting a local government here.
So I'm going to suggest that we fold that into the community outreach plan. And that because we could add, well, we're not getting into the bullet points, we could easily put that under community outreach plan. And that would be to educate the local community on resources available with the county. And we could also, educate ourselves on county resources. And that could be under the outreach plan. Maybe we should just call it an outreach plan as opposed to a community outreach plan. And then we can include both the county side of it and the community side of it. So I'm going to suggest we change that to develop outreach plan.
All right, good.
Then we can incorporate, the idea of connecting citizens with county resources. Does that sound all right, Larry, in a nutshell? All right, so, okay, any other comments from the public? Any other comments from council members?
We did have Leslie, but it looks like she's lowered her hand. Leslie, if you would like to make a comment, please speak now. Okay.
And if Shannon Lee would like to make a comment, I'd love to hear from her also, since we have such a small group.
Oh, Leslie.
There she goes. Okay, Leslie.
So let's go with Leslie and then Shannon.
Okay. Yes, Leslie Vaughn.
Okay, I'm finally getting the hang of this. My hand went up and down several times because I was going with the outreach program education. Thank you for putting it in there and making it both ways. So I totally agree. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Leslie. And Shannon?
Yeah, you called me out, so I'll say something, Arthur. Two things, actually. So again, sort of piggybacking on Leslie and Larry, the education part of it, as relates to the emergency preparedness, there's been a conversation going on with some people from the forum and with Julie Atwood, and talking about COPE and CERT and other training. And I know Melissa just did one of those, the all hazards training recently. And so, I don't know if this falls under the MAC or the forum or what, but I think trying to make sure that the public is aware of the different tiers of training that we can have, bring together some informative compilation or a training day or a forum of understanding, so that we know what's appropriate. Some of us might want to get extensive training, and some of us might just kind of want to know what to do in an earthquake, or something. So there's different levels of training. And then the other thing is piggybacking on what Mark, I think, was bringing up for the SDC meeting. I'm constantly surprised, even now, hearing people talk about SDC and Eldridge as if it's separate from Glen Ellen, when the people in Glen Ellen, it basically surrounds Eldridge. And as Kate knows, I can see her nodding there. And so, anything that happens there, it really becomes part of Glen Ellen and it's part of the North Valley. So to whatever degree the MAC is involved with continuing to push that message out, that Eldridge is not a separate thing. It's embedded into our community. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Shannon. Just a comment on, because I saw some of those emails going around about the CERT and COPE, and I felt like it was way too in depth for me to get my head around at this point. Like so here's what I'm thinking. I'm open to people chiming in on what their thoughts are, but assuming that we adopt the enhanced emergency preparedness and response, that then we form an ad hoc committee to take a look at what already exists in the community and where there might be some gaps. And maybe one of the gaps, it may well be education or letting people know, that there are these opportunities available that might be one of the things that the committee decides on. But because I think, again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We don't, like, I don't see the max role as starting a whole, CERT program or something. I mean, I think we want to help those things along, but I don't think we have the bandwidth to really run something like that. Any thoughts on that? Or yeah, Councilmember Dowling.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dawson. I did attend the all hazards training that Julie Atwood and part of her programs that she sponsors were supporting, and Captain Gary Johnson of the Glen Ellen Fire Department, or the Sonoma Valley Fire Station number 5, he facilitated it, and it was phenomenal. It's about 2.5 hours of time, but he went through every hazard that you could possibly ever think of encountering and gave you good tools of how to respond, and just to keep yourself safe, your neighbors safe, your home safe, your pets safe. And it's really a great training, and it's a big time commitment, and not everybody has time on a Thursday afternoon to do it, but having us support that kind of training that is put on by our local emergency responders and professionals would be a great, easy thing for us to do.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dowling. Yeah, what is the one question? There's a number of acronyms floating around. There's CERT, there's COPE, and there's HALTER. So which one did you do, or is it something else?
None of the above. So it was something that it was a program by, it's another acronym probably, but it's Captain Gary Johnson. So it was of the fire station that he put it on, and it's a certification that people who are aspiring to be firefighters or aspiring to be able to go behind emergency lines during a disaster need these sort of certifications. But it was really handy. Like, what do you do if there's a power line down and it falls on your car? I know, because I took the class. So it's a really a great resource for us.
Well, thank you. And thankfully you're my neighbor, so I can run down next time a power line falls. Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. I could totally see us promoting more people taking training like that. Okay, let's see, how are we doing on time? I've kind of lost track of, is this supposed to go for, we're supposed to try to end at 7 or 7:30? Or
the meeting goes as long as you want it to, Chair. This group tends to like to keep it to about 2 hours. So and I see that Councilmember Newhouser also has his hand up if you would like to say something.
Yes, Councilmember Newhouser.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was going, no, don't have the meeting go all night. Yeah, I think we should be able to get our meetings done in an hour and a half, preferably, but I also know that we want to have a vote and to decide on our goals. I saw Melissa's post to the chat room, and I thought, oh, I could put some stuff in there. So I started writing stuff, just some ideas related to what Larry was saying about education. And I realized I was doing that because I couldn't see the draft. So I was wondering if you could put the draft back up so that we could maybe make it minor modifications to that public outreach goal, as per some of Larry's and I think Leslie's and even Shannon's input, and then just take a vote and go get dinner.
That sounds good. Yeah, personally, I think an hour and a half to 2 hours is about right. People start getting a little crazy after that.
So I was during the public comment, Larry and Shannon's public comment, I typed some things because it sounded like folks were discussing that and agreeing. So the things that are highlighted are things that I heard kind of Chair Dawson and Councilmember Newhouser say in response to them. So that's just some suggested language. Feel free to toss it out or suggest changes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to suggest that we vote on this, and that we're voting on the mission statement and the goals, and that the actions, the bullet points underneath the goals will be open. We're not voting on taking up any particular bullet point. We're just voting on the goals and the mission statement. Any thoughts or comments on that? And then we can discuss those at the next meeting. Or even better, have an ad hoc committee take a look and decide what the goals, what the priorities should be under each one of these goals. I have to keep toggling back and forth between the panelists and the attendees to see if there's any hands. Okay, no hands. So would someone like to propose that we adopt the mission statement and the goals?
Councilmember Eagles and Newhouser both have their hands up.
Oh, yeah, okay. Councilmember Eagles.
Thank you, Chair Dawson. Two things. Yes, I would agree that the bullets really end up being sort of, in my mind, more tactics of how we address a goal. And I think those are going to be where we get into the nitty gritty and might be handled better at an ad hoc, prioritizing the goals would be one thing we might do next meeting. But I also think that the specifics under those goals might be something ad hoc committees take up. And I have my other comment I'm kind of embarrassed to even say here, but as we talk about communities and making sure we are doing outreach and are inclusive, I was on the ad hoc committee for this mission statement, and yet my community might not be represented here. When we say Eldridge, is your opinion group, my fellow council members, that would include the Rancho Madrone neighborhood that's actually not in Glen Ellen, or do we need to add that in? And again, I'm embarrassed because I was part of this group and didn't really pick up on it thinking, oh, Eldridge, but maybe we need to be more specific so as not to exclude part of the community is within the boundary. Anyone have a thought on that?
Thoughts?
So I'm south of, I think you guys know this, but I'm south of Madrone. So my address is Sonoma, Edward.
I mean, personally, I think, that we're basically just mentioning the largest communities within the MAC boundaries. So I mean, I don't want Rancho Madrone to feel left out. And I tend to think of Rancho Madrone as sort of a suburb of Eldridge.
And I think that's how I thought of it initially. So I don't have a big problem with, but if anyone feels on the phone or in the community that I'm neglecting our neighborhood, I wanted to bring that up. I didn't think so initially, and I think that's why I didn't comment on it. So I will leave it there.
Okay.
Chair Dawson?
Right, any other hands? Let's see. No more hands. So would someone like to move that we adopt the mission statement and the goals? Yes, Councilmember.
Councilmember, yes, go ahead.
I so move to adopt the mission statement and goals as written.
And is there a second?
I second.
All right, seconded by Vicky Handren. So all in favor of adopting the mission statement and the goals as written? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we did it. Fantastic. And I want to just acknowledge Councilmember Dickey with goals at the last meeting instead of leaving, helped the discussion and streamlined the process. So thank you. Otherwise, we'd probably still be talking over possible goals. And then Mark would never get to eat. All right, now we're going to move on to, let's see, reports and announcements from council members. So any reports from the SVCAC, Councilmember Dickey?
Our last meeting was a meeting largely with Sonoma, the city of Sonoma, regarding the urban growth boundary and the cannabis dispensary. It was pre-election. So it was largely educational for ourselves. Obviously those issues have been resolved by vote. This week on Wednesday, we have a presentation regarding the winery and events, wineries and events. It's been a long time in coming. I don't believe that we vote on anything at this point. I think it's largely informative. And then there's a small presentation regarding a 500 square foot tasting room out on Ramal Road, which obviously doesn't have much to do with Glen Ellen.
Unless they drive up this way, but yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, you're coming from Eldridge.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Councilmember Dickey. And Councilmember Dowling, anything to add about the any news from the forum that we haven't mentioned yet? She's still here. I don't see her.
I think she's gone.
I think maybe she's left. I don't see her name up on the list. Yes, Councilmember Handren.
So I have been attending meetings with the Sonoma Valley Latinx COVID response, and it is a group of, it's a weekly call. It's a group that consists of nonprofits, business leaders, the Visitors Bureau, I think the Chamber of Commerce is there, the health centers represented, vintners and growers are there, and everybody, there's been reporting on what the present COVID situation is, and then each organization reports on how they're responding to it, specifically focusing on the Latinx population because they are disproportionately impacted. And so the last meeting on Friday, there was a lot of discussion about moving Sonoma County from purple to red. But Supervisor Gorin gave us an update on that. And then there's an increase in testing. There's weekly testing available in the parking lot across from the Fruit Basket on Mondays. The nonprofit communities are really gearing up to help. They're seeing an increase in people having financial difficulties, specifically with rent. La Luz and Fish have been giving out a lot of rental assistance money. And the city of Sonoma and Sonoma County, as we know, both have really good websites with lots of resources for people who are impacted by COVID or just want general information. So that's a very brief summary of the call. If anybody has anything they want me to say or represent as a representative of the MAC, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Councilmember Handren. I'm curious if you got any sense of how our local Latinx population is affected.
Well, they disproportionately have a higher rate of positivity.
Yeah.
With COVID, and then also because then they're also financially impacted by that too. Then there's a lot of reasons for that. It has to do with a lot of socioeconomic issues, housing conditions, having to work, having all kinds of issues. Yeah.
So we could assume that those would also apply within the MAC area as well as in the Springs and.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there do you see any need for outreach to the Latinx community in the MAC area?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about that, how best to reach people. I think there's certain areas, mostly in the apartments, that I think of off the top of my head, but I think that there are the population, there's plenty of dense housing areas, and even in rental homes with lots of different families sharing a small space. I think you find that all over the place.
So I wonder, anyway, maybe at the next, if you think of anything the MAC could do specifically to help the situation.
Yeah,
we certainly could talk about that.
Thank you.
It's getting scary. The numbers out there are pretty scary.
Yeah.
Any other announcements or updates on anything?
I have a comment to make. I don't know, it's largely administrative, so I don't know if we go on to the next item on the agenda, or just should I comment now?
Sure, go ahead.
Referring to the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission meetings, we give the public 2 minutes at any given time. And our chairman is pretty good about letting them know at 30 seconds that their time is almost up. And I admire him for that, because you know, it makes for a very consistent pattern to the meetings. And you as the chairman are going to have to undertake that role. And I'm not sure where we determined that 5 minutes was the proper amount of time, but I think we could shorten it.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Dickey. Yeah.
It obviously can be abused.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, 5 minutes was what came off the top of my head, but you know, do we want to take a vote? Well, let's see. Yeah, would someone like to raise a motion to generally limit public comments to a certain amount of time?
If I may, Chair Dawson, if that's how you'd like to make that decision, that is, you're right as chair. But as chair, you can set the public comment limit on, you know, each item. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to have a vote of your fellow council members to do that. You are empowered to do so.
Okay. Well, if so, I think I will just take that under advisement, and the next time, most likely, do a little bit of a shorter public comment time period. And you know, I was tempted to use the mute button, but it feels very unfriendly. But maybe I should have. You know,
I would suggest 3 minutes personally.
3 minutes sounds about right. Yeah.
Chair, speaking of public comment, we do have Sharon Lee with her hand up for this item, which is the reports and announcements. So
okay.
If there are no more reports or announcements, we can move to public comments.
Okay, yeah, let's go to public comments. Shannon?
Hi, just really quickly, I just wanted to follow on what Vicki was talking about. I've been helping with Food for All, which is probably one of the nonprofits that she's been connecting with. And they're feeding, or they're bringing actually essential supplies to housebound families in need. A lot of them now at this point are COVID positive individuals as well. And every time that I've helped in the last month, a number of those have been going to be delivered to Glen Ellen families. So I definitely know, although they're Springs based and we work out of El Verano School, at least one driver every time is heading towards Glen Ellen to deliver these items. So, you know, there's definitely a need in our community that's direct.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Any other public comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anyone know what our demographics are here in the North Valley MAC, as in the different population groups, percentages?
I've seen it online, but maybe the county Supervisor Gorin or Arielle, does the county have that up online on a website?
We can research that and provide that. You'd have to look at Kenwood and the census tract around Kenwood, the census tract around Glen Ellen, and separate them out from the rest of the Sonoma Valley. But we could do that.
Okay, I think that'd be great to have that information. All right, any other comments or questions? So consideration of items for a future agenda. So just remember, this is just ideas for the agenda. This isn't a time for discussion. Yes, Vice Chair Das.
Thanks, Chairman. Whoops. First of all, under the goal of expand stock of affordable housing in the future, not next meeting or even the meeting after that, get through the holidays and sometime next year, I'd like to have a presentation regarding the Housing Land Trust as a way for affordable housing. I'm on the board of the Housing Land Trust, and we have over 100 homes now up and down the 101 corridor, but we've not really made any impact in Sonoma Valley. And so I'd like you to at least understand what it is and have a presentation. So when we have that opportunity, I'd like to plug that in. The other is today I got a call from a firefighter at the Kenwood Fire Protection District, and he is very concerned and or interested in LED signage. And you say, well, what is that? Well, you've been seeing them lately. If you travel Highway 12, PG&E and others had these large LED signs along the highway, informing of you of speed limits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This firefighter believes that this would be helpful under our goal of enhance emergency preparedness. And so in the future, at least take a look at that as a possibility of something that might enhance traffic, people evacuations, or information about what's happening in the valley using, these are permanent LED signs, evidently. Today was the first I've heard of it. I'm not real expert on it. Evidently, he has spoken to Arielle and Supervisor Gorn in the past. But anyway, it's something for the future, not necessarily for next month.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Das. And I could certainly see that taken up by the ad hoc committee and then brought to the whole MAC at a certain point. Both of those things that you mentioned. Any other items for future agenda? Yeah, Councilmember Handren.
Maybe we could talk about prioritizing our goals.
Yeah. Yes. Oops, Councilmember Newhouser.
As requested earlier, I'd like to agendize the triangle across from the firehouse as a potential community project to be collaborated on with the Glen Ellen Forum. And also regarding the goals, only suggestion I have around the specific goals is to please distribute the copy that you have. I mean, maybe you've already sent it, and then have maybe as a homework assignment for everyone to think through that, add or refine each of those bullets, the suggested ones, and to even think through a prioritization, not only just within each goal, but also between goals, so that we can then establish some action items in the near future to actually focus our efforts on.
Thank you, Councilmember Newhouser. Yes, Councilmember Dickey.
Just a question regarding Mark's proposal. I'm concerned that if we become too specific about the priorities that we identify underneath our goals, that we lose track of the fact that it's largely a living document. And if we try to refine it to this infinite specificity, or did I pronounce that right? That we kind of lose track of the fact that it should be evolutionary rather than specific to a time and a place that might tie us into a very rigid environment from a community standpoint.
Thank you, Councilmember Dickey.
May I rebut that debate item? Well, I think at some point we need to make decisions about what we actually focus on. And yes, I agree, it's a living document. But I think that if we all think about this, and look at long and hard at what we think are important. And then when we come back, reconvene in the next meeting, we can actually decide, hopefully through consensus, on which items we think are most important. Usually it's timely issues like disaster preparedness or whatever. And then make decisions on what we want to focus on so that we actually get to working on actual projects rather than just talking about them. Thank you.
No, I agree with that sentiment of wanting to, I don't want to get to some action. I mean, the way I've been picturing this is that, we would take these home, do homework, as people have said, and because we're limited, so it seems like if we could vote next time on which goals we want to pursue in the near future, it doesn't have to be a specific amount of time, but if we decide that we want to do emergency preparedness, housing, and beautification, and then we people can volunteer to be on ad hoc committees for those, and those committees will decide which they want to see happen underneath those goals. And then I guess that would be probably the January meeting. We could actually, those committees could come back and report, and we could start making some plans for actual action. But I think, I do think I think deciding to work on the triangle at the next meeting that's kind of jumping the gun. Like, we should really think about what do we want to focus on, and then, maybe that will be the thing, but I think that's kind of taking a specific ahead of our general plan. That's just my opinion. Yes, Councilmember Nardo Morgan.
Okay, thank you, Chair Dawson. I kind of think one of the most important things right now is really outreach, because I think that we really need to think about ways to encourage community members to attend and to learn about what we're doing, and particularly to attend these meetings. It would be really nice to get, sorry about the dog, it would be really nice to get, large numbers of the community to be here. So I would like to see that. I would like to see us focus on that, because without it, we aren't really effective.
Yeah. Good point.
And everyone's having a great discussion here. I just want to remind everyone that's kind of getting into the topic, that if Chair Dawson in the meeting planning decides that it's sounding like that's what it's going to be, is going to be goals prioritization as at least one of the items for next time, perhaps the only item. So that's a discussion that should happen at that time.
Thank you, Arielle. Yeah, I think that would be a good agenda item if people are in agreement. And that may take most of the meeting. Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Yeah, just regarding the triangle thing, it may or may not be the highest priority that we should be addressing, but I think that to a certain extent we need to take our lead from the community. And when a community member, or one of the three that actually showed up tonight, brings up this issue as a long-term issue that's been kicked around for several years, I think we kind of need to follow that lead. And so again, it goes back to what Councilmember Nardo Morgan mentioned, was that we need more input from people, and what we may think is most important may not be what the community really wants to do, especially when it comes to like a community project, because it's maintaining that engagement is critically important. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Newhouser. I wonder if we need to have a goal which is just to address whatever's most timely, make that a sort of set that aside as an unknown, possibly unknown in the future. I guess I'm a little bit afraid, to speak frankly, a little bit afraid to get sucked into a big triangle, controversy to the detriment of all the other things that we might be doing, and it's very Glen Ellen specific. So, I don't know how interested our Kenwood members are about the triangle. I'm just aware of that it's not a MAC wide thing. I live a half a mile away and I hardly ever think about it. So, it doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that it's a very local issue. Yes, Councilmember Nardo Morgan.
No, I was just going to say, when you said sucked in, the Glen Ellen Bermuda Triangle, yes.
Let's leave it as part of the priorities for next time.
Okay, sounds good. So, does that sound good? We're going to make our the big agenda item is prioritizing our goals and then assigning committees to our top goals.
Yes.
I mean, if we don't get all the way there, that's okay, but I think that would be a good thing to shoot for, because then we can really start doing some stuff and people can dig in. Since, like I've realized being on the MAC, how difficult it is to be, in public office, if you want to call that this, because we can't really have these discussions except once a month. And so we can't, I can't just email a bunch of MAC members and say, hey, what do you think about this? So, but the ad hoc committees can do that. So that seems like the place to really dig in and then bring it back to the MAC and get feedback there. So would someone like to move that prioritizing goals and assigning ad hoc committees
actually, Arthur, Chair Dawson, you don't need to vote on that. This was just informational. So the ones that I took down in the minutes are Housing Land Trust in early 2021, the Kenwood Fire Station signage issue, which I'm aware of, prioritizing goals in the formation of ad hocs, and the Glen Ellen Triangle are the four that I heard from this discussion. And then we'll work together, Arthur, to set the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we could. Yeah, I'm not against talking about the triangle. I just want to make sure it doesn't take over. All right. So I'm going to request a motion to adjourn. Let's see. Is there any last?
Don't move.
Oh, Larry Davis has his hand up. Larry?
Of course.
Thanks for letting me go over time and speaking. And I hope that we can next meeting have on the agenda some discussion, which I think is your category of the goal of outreach, right? Is that where you put the items that were written in to the old statement? Is that right?
In your letter?
Well, no, not my, I'll send my letter, but the items that were added in that you have as your goal, the outreach, right? And I think the items that in my letter that have to do with things that are missing from our knowledge as citizens, and asking you to be actively involved in educating me as a citizen as to how these things are going to work, that's what the agenda item. I was asking you to have that discussion. I think you're going to have that discussion indirectly or directly when you discuss that goal of outreach. How do you bring the knowledge of the county to the people, and how do you bring the people to the knowledge of the county so that we can get cooperation better between the people and the government at the very local level? See, this is an agency that can do that with forums or ad hoc meetings that ask people to come in and testify, or, you have all the paraphernalias of a local government available to you in an indirect way. You just don't have any money, but otherwise you're it. So I enjoy learning about it, and I just want to be educated about these things that are bothering me.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're all in the process. We're all on a learning curve here, I think. So I certainly am. All right. Thanks, Larry. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
Okay. Motion from Councilmember Nardo Morgan, and a second. All right. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. I'm calling this meeting adjourned at 7:41.
Thank you, Chair Dawson.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. And
Hey, everybody, be safe.
You too. Good night.
yeah. All
Night
right.
all.
See you
Bye.
around.
Bye.
All right.